Topic is Brown versus the Board of Education and Historical Black Colleges, and we're talking to Dr. AAl-Hadid. Dr. AAl-Hadid, one of the important elements of Brown versus the Board of Education was that in 1954 it overturned a decision that had been rendered in 1896 called Plessy versus Ferguson. And I think on some of these earlier shows we talked about these decisions. But let's look at the impact that Plessy had upon education, period, and how historical black colleges were able to find a way within that situation.
Yes, I think Plessy is very important because it created a legal framework for the rollbacks that we got during the period of Reconstruction. In other words, legally, Plessy versus Ferguson, in terms of the separate but equal principle, established officially American apartheid at the national level. So in other words, the United States Supreme Court bought into a dual society, bought into a segregated society. And it wasn't until Brown versus the Board of Education 1954 came along that that whole concept was overturned. But be that as it may, let's just look at what happened as a result between Plessy and Brown. Basically, we established a dual system of higher education. And African Americans were put in a situation where they got inadequate facilities, low teacher salaries, very substandard buildings, but we did develop a curriculum. And I think what we have to understand is that we have two types of curricula that was developed. In the private sector, we had pretty much a liberal arts curriculum. And that was the type of curriculum that was advocated by W.E.B. Du Bois. You can find that sort of outline in his Souls of Black Folks. In the public sector, we developed pretty much a vocational ed or technical type curriculum. And that comes out of Booker T. Washington's classic, Up From Slavery. So one is saying, well, let's develop infrastructure, let's get involved in technology and become part and parcel of the Industrial Revolution in terms of factory development and agrarian life. And the other one's saying, well, let's develop a class of talented people that are doctors, lawyers, college professors, business persons, and these people would be pretty much the race men. These would be the leaders of the race. And so that the liberal arts curriculum also stressed agitating for the franchise, agitating for the right to vote, which we had gotten with the 15th Amendment, but of course it was not enforced in the South because of this existence of Plessy versus Ferguson and the segregated school system. So basically, when we developed our curriculum, as Carter G. Woodson says in The Miseducation of Negro, was basically, it created a white school for Negroes. Why did it create a white school for Negroes? Because it did not take into account African American culture as the heart of the core curriculum. Rather, it created a core curriculum that canonized American history, it canonized the English language, and everything that is part and parcel of the Europe-centered arts and humanities. That became the driving force in our curriculum. So what we actually produced were black Anglo-Saxons, people that had a mindset of Europeans, coupled with the production of black Anglo-Saxons through the educational curriculum. We also developed certain what we might call secret societies on campus. We know them today as the Greek letter organizations. And those black Greek letter organizations reinforce this black Anglo-Saxon mentality because they too bought into the whole Greco-Roman canon, and they reinforced that in the culture and social life of these schools, thus creating a type of elitism. So not only were the students pledging Greek letter organizations, but the administration itself was comprised of members of Greek letter organizations. And those Greek letter organizations not only function in terms of the ones that we know like Kappa, Alpha, AKA, Delta, but many of these organizations also tied back into the grandfather organization, which was the Boule. And the Boule was basically an organization for the medical doctors and the college professors so that they could, and the word Boule itself means servant of the king.
Okay, very good.
And so their job was to be a conduit or a go-between between the white ruling class and the black community. That was their job, to keep a barometer on the black community and carry out pretty much the biddings of the white ruling class. And so that filtered down in terms of your black Greek letter organization. And that's where the control element was. So I think that's how the curriculum developed, you know, over time. Now, when Brown v. Board of Education came along in 1954, that created a very interesting scenario for the HBCUs.
Okay, very good.
It was very interesting because it set the stage for the civil rights movement, the modern civil rights movement, especially when we were trying to desegregate so-called predominant white institutions like the University of Tennessee, University of Alabama, Ole Miss, etc. So when the laws were passed to do that, I think the lawmakers, legislators, as well as interpreters of law, kept a trump card that they were to play later.
Okay.
And now they're playing out that trump card. And the trump card that they're playing out now, okay, in the 60s and the 70s, you forced us to accommodate your people.
Okay.
Now we're sending our students and our faculty to your schools, not to desegregate them, but to take over them. And so what's happening now is Brown versus Board of Education is now being used as a weapon against HBCUs, because it's creating a scenario where the white ruling class, in complicity with the government and complicity with the legal system, are creating a situation where they want to make all schools that are state-supported predominantly white. So they want the HBCUs to become extinct. In fact, it's almost illegal to speak of HBCUs today as black colleges because of the court rulings that they want to create a situation where whites will be welcome, whether they're students or faculty and so forth. So our schools are now bending over backwards to give white students affirmative action. And the PWIs, predominant white schools, are doing nothing to grant affirmative action to black students at their schools. So you still have this duality, and that duality is there because the HBCUs, they were the victims during segregation. Now they're the victims under desegregation.
Well, now, as we make preparations for the second break and make preparations to come back for the third segment, let's see if we can get some kind of direction in terms of what can be done in order to make these historical black institutions, even though they are institutions that will try to bring in all groups, really serve the purpose that they were originally intended to serve. Of course, when we come back, we'll raise that question. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. The topic is